Hi there. Yeah, in this video, I just want to talk briefly about my thoughts and theories on sort of how I kind of look at autism and ADHD working together. Because I'm diagnosed autistic, and I first learned about being on the spectrum and and identifying that a long time ago when I was in my early 20s. But ADHD, I never really thought about like that could be ADHD. I just sort of first came across and Asperger's, as it was back then, read into that and like related and identified with, oh yeah, this seems like something I could be. But ADHD never really crossed my mind. It wasn't until years later, like recent years, like the last 6 years, that ADHD started to get a little bit more popular because of awareness, and I started to learn more about ADHD, as of course the rest of the world did, because obviously when I was a kid, of what I knew of ADHD was like, what everyone thought it was then when you were in school was like naughty little boys. And of course, when I was a schoolboy, I wasn't a naughty little boy. I was actually a very good boy. I wasn't a troublemaker. I wasn't disruptive in the class or anything like that. So yeah, I didn't really identify it as a child or my teenage years. So of course, when I stumbled across, but obviously still growing up feeling, why am I so different, etc. like that. And of course, get to 22, and then that's when I learned about Asperger's, and that's when I started relating and identifying that I could be on the spectrum. And of course, so many years, 10 plus years go by, and I eventually do get a diagnosis in autism, but of course, it's under just all ASD now. Asperger's is not an individual thing anymore. It's all just, as we all know, it's all under one umbrella. But the last 6 years was when ADHD started to get a different outlook, and it wasn't just seen as, naughty little boys and adults. It started to be seen that ADHD is not just something that kids have. It's obviously it stays with you into adulthood, but it just manifests into something different. And then on top of that, they also didn't think, once upon a time, they didn't think that the two conditions, autism and ADHD, could coexist together at the same time. And that's where it's got me thinking about. I started reading a bit about ADHD. There are some parts of ADHD that I do relate to, but not strongly enough to the point where it sort of interferes with like the autism side. And that's when I watched the Pixar film Inside Out, and of course the sequel, which are both brilliant films, and the visualization of how they sort of show what goes on inside the brain with emotions and that, etc., with the control panel, and making controlling Riley's actions and how she feels and etc. I started looking at it from like a point of view, of someone who is autism and ADHD, with that control panel, that for those that are like have the two conditions quite badly, to the point of where like 50-50, they're like they're both fighting for control, and and really sort of like tearing at each other, like, no, I want it, no, I want it, no, I want it, no, I want it. But then of course there are other people that where ADHD's less in control, and in the back seat, and autism's more in the front seat and more up there on the control panel, and is the boss, basically in charge, you know, and no, we're doing this and we're doing that. Well, ADHD doesn't really get a chance or a choice until, of course, autism, the autistic side sort of gets burnt out or something, or turns its back, and then ADHD sort of seizes its opportunity, comes in, swoops in and goes, oh, while he's, you know, off doing that, I'm going to have a little play on the control panels and blow, you know, doing this. Or it could be vice versa, you know, it could be ADHD that's in the control seat and overpowers the autism side of things. But of course, when ADHD either burns out or looks the other way, autism backseat notices it and goes, oh, well, finally, I can have a go at the controls, and does the same thing. Oh, I'm in charge now. I'm doing what I want to do. Blah 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 blah. And that's sort of how I feel. I identify more strongly with being autistic than I do ADHD. And I don't feel like ADHD sort of massively impacts my life like as much. I don't feel like I'm at war with myself, as in I've heard, you know, that some people that they feel like they're constantly battling every day between the two conditions. Like, yeah, they want one side wants this, and I mean, and they can't, you know what I mean, and I can't imagine that. This must be hectic. As in, I don't really feel that way, you know, but of course there are people that are more sort of ADHD than autism. So yeah, so that's sort of like my theory on how I sort of like view it, you know, and that's helped by watching that Inside Out and that's seeing that control panel. So yeah, so you know, I'm quite keen to know if anyone does ever come across this video and watches it. I'd love to know how other people view the two conditions, you know, and how they see it, and if they sort of see it in the same way that I see it, and when if you don't, like, yeah, just let me know what your thoughts. I'd love to know. I'd love to know what anyone else's thoughts on the two, and how they view the two conditions in the same way that I sort of view it. There could be a percentage control, either 50-50 or it could be like 80-20, depending on which side, vice versa. So yeah, I'd be interested if anyone sees this, watches it, you know, and if you do make it all the way to, if you do watch the whole video, thank you for what, and yeah, let me know your thoughts on your sort of like theories on how you view it. Yeah, that's just what I want to say. It's just been on my mind for some time, and I just thought, I'll, you know, make a little video and put it out there, and hopefully see if anyone thinks the same thing as me, or, you know, etc. But yeah, that's about it. So that's all for now. Thanks. Bye.